So we're recording now, and I just want to invite everybody to maybe close your eyes. And let's take some deep breaths together. And as we're breathing, other than the sound of my voice, let it gently guide you. I encourage you to kind of disconnect from devices, distractions, and really coming deep into yourself. Breathing, and on every inhale, coming deeper and deeper and deeper into the awareness of your own body. Remembering that our body informs us. When we disconnect from distractions and devices, what is our body telling us? Are there any aches or pains or physical discomfort that maybe we haven't fully noticed? How well resourced are you? Did you get enough rest? Enough breakfast? What's your emotional state this morning? How are you feeling? And the question of the day is, what does this pandemic, this global shift, change, timeout mean to you? And not necessarily belief systems or theories that you've read on the internet. Recognize there's plenty of those. But what's your personal experience over these last few months? How has your life changed? And I invite us to access our frontal lobe, not our reactive mind, but our observer. So imagine almost that you're looking at yourself and your life at this time from a soul view, from an oversoul view. How would your higher self or your God self or the biggest part of you or the biggest aspect of creation looking at you see this moment in time? How is it going for you? What are you learning? What are you experiencing? How are you evolving? I'm going to keep us in silence for a minute because I want us to all just go deep into that inquiry of how we are evolving at this time. And after you've got clarity on that, slowly opening your eyes, coming back into the room. We're going to be working with that throughout the day. So I'd like to invite, if any of you want to share audibly, I'd love to hear from a few of you what came up for you, how you're evolving, how this is impacting you. And again, I'm not really looking for belief systems. In fact, I promise there's going to be 5 tips of how to deal with the pandemic. Let me start with the first one. Be very careful not to go down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theory or belief system. Now, I recognize that some of you may have really strong beliefs about what started this and what it means. And I assume I'm not here to debate any of those beliefs. For me, I've adopted that I don't know. I truly don't know how it started, if it was man-made, if it's a conspiracy, if it's 5G or 5D. I don't know. I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know what the story is about a vaccine. I don't know. And I might not know for a long time. And some of these questions I might not ever know. Who killed John Kennedy? None of us really know for sure. But there's a lot of different books and belief systems about it. What I've observed is that very often archetypal events are played out in such a way that we never really know what the truth is. But we can look at what do I believe, and what does that tell me about the way I see the world? If I believe it's a 5th dimensional rising of ascension, that shows me something about what I believe. That's beautiful. If I believe that Bill Gates and others are in a conspiracy to get vaccines into my body, that shows me something about the way I see the world. There's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. But let's not get too attached to a belief system. I get too attached to a belief system. So that's suggestion number 1. But rather, how am I experiencing this? How is it impacting me? And that's the question that's worth asking. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to Daniel to respond, and then we'll hear from Candace and or Shauna.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Yeah, interesting that you talk about beliefs right away, because lately that's been really what's impacting me is, seeing friends on different social media, like really strongly expressing what they believe is going on, and seeing how that's like creating like a separation between sometimes them and me and them and other people, and it becomes this argument about whose belief is right and whose science is right. And I've been feeling a lot of pain around that, around the wedges that are being like driven between us. And I'm noticing that I was ignoring it for a while, and I started responding lately to people about I'm just seeing my value for what's similar between us, and what's one between us, and what are the things that we all are alike in. And so I guess I'm starting to like really the impact is like I'm really starting to see what are the beautiful things that we all share, and what is it that makes us the same. That's all. I'm in with that.
Thank you. Let's all twinkle. In Love Coach Academy, we twinkle people. So thank you, Daniel, for sharing that. And that, I'm not going to call anybody, but I'll go to take the Daniel. So by raise of hands, who can relate to what Daniel just shared? Who did that? Yes, thank you, Daniel. So a reminder to please keep yourselves muted. Some people I can't mute and unmute. So for example, Adit and JP, if you could just keep track of that, that would be great. And we are going to go live on Facebook right now. So I'm going to do a brief introduction to the Facebook people. And then I want to hear from a couple of others. And then I'm going to get into the tips. And then we'll go to breakout rooms. So welcome, Facebook friends. I'm Love Coach Scott Gatamas. And this is the Relationship Essentials class on Saturday. It's a class that we teach every Saturday. And today's topic is how to manage ourselves in the pandemic. And there's gonna be 5 tips. And the first tip was, which we already talked about, we started a little bit early. The first tip was not to get lost in belief systems that you might find on the internet, not to go down the rabbit hole, and certainly not to go into argument with your friends or your family or other people about it. My suggestion is making peace that none of us know for sure a lot of the things that we wish we had answers to. So here's the first tip. And want to open it up to, I think, Candace and Shauna, you had raised your hand. What came up for you? And we had done, for those on Facebook, we did a little meditation, dropping into how the pandemic is impacting us, not the belief systems around it, but our own personal experience. So Candace and Shawnee, the spotlight's on you.
Thank you, thank you. The big thing that's coming up for me is, I don't have any struggles around the belief systems. I'm having a real deep experience on it. It's like an inward journey. And all the outside stuff is kind of like either not accessible, it's just like stagnant. And so there's this part of me that's annoyed, but I see the medicine in it, you know, slowing down, finding the balance between thought and action, the inside job and the outside job. And right now I'm feeling like I'm ready for action, you know, but not the world isn't. So I'm just going to continue on the inside job. I personally, I was severely depressed for 2 years up until Corona, because all of a sudden, you know, this, especially like LCA, I would say like saved my life, like really, like these having you guys available to me in my own home. So my life has drastically changed for the better since the pandemic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. All right. People
coming together more and becoming more available to one another. And as someone who went blind, you know, in the journey that I've had, just created big shifts. Huge. And there's many other people that don't get out of the house or can't afford or can't get to these things that now have access.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for sharing, Twinkle, Candace. Thank you for sharing that. And just, isn't that something? I mean, here's a woman who's gone blind, and yet she's actually thriving in this time. And it's, a lot of it is because of community. And just want to say, that's why I love Coach Academy. We're doing 2 or 3 webinars a day. Yesterday, we hit a new record because of Radiance doing her special show. We did 4 webinars yesterday. Love Coach Academy had Fun and Frisky Friday, Fun and Frolic Friday. Then we had Radiance did an amazing, beautiful show. Then we had our recovery talk with Timothy, who's here with us, and Heidi. And then it wrapped up with Trish and I doing our Straight Talk show. 4 webinars in one day, all from Love Coach Academy. So I'm pretty proud of that. And, you know, with that, I'm going to put the spotlight on Radiance, who did actually a beautiful, I really loved your show yesterday, Radiance.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was, I'm grateful that I made it through those journey. May I just speak for 1 second about about what's going on with Corona? One piece that I find really interesting that I've really started to nurture is recognizing how to be kind in public. So I used to not necessarily think about it. If I had a cold, I'd go to the store. I wouldn't necessarily put on a mask or anything. I'd just go and get my shopping done. Indiana was one of the first to really like reopen, and it was only like closed for a couple weeks. So for the most part, people here are not wearing masks. And however, I recognize that I could, so I do when I'm out at the grocery store. And it's just being kind. Like I'm seeing that there's triage within humanity right now, and triage is the people who are the least able to care for themselves. How do we care for the people who are least able to? So I've just really come to a place in humanity where I'm like, wow, how can I participate in making sure that people are safe and feel safe across the board and create community based on that? Thank you. I'm complete.
Thank you very much, Mimi. Thank you. That's Ultra Radiance, also known as Mimi, also known as Mrs. Tyler. You know, that actually is a segue to one of my other 5 suggestions. And that is practice kindness. Really practicing kindness. It's really kind of what we're already hearing from some of the people today, that this is a time to really come together. Like what Daniel said, let's be kind to each other. Let's not argue over different belief systems. Let's not argue over anything. Let's be kind. Let's listen. So that's one of the other ones. So thank you very, very much. I'm going to hear from a couple of other people that wanted to be heard from. Just a reminder, it's always nice if you keep it relevant to what we're talking about and try and keep it to about a minute. So Deborah Haviland, one of our other love coaches, I'm putting the spotlight on you, Deborah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say I feel like Daniel. I'm very inspired to find common ground. And I was meditating and on the Zoom that I want to create, that would be coming from this wonderful platform of how we serve through Love Coach Academy. And I've been encouraged, you know, to do one on self-care and self-love with a lot of dance and music, but I was really feeling what is the common ground that binds us? And here we are on common ground. We're literally on this earth. So I went to the pool yesterday and I was asked to teach water aerobics there, and I'm feeling so happy about that. And just here, for me also, it's been like, it actually gave me time to go more within. I'm a very active person. I love socializing. I love going out. But this, I feel like it's relaxed so many people into more home time, more cooking, more tending to ourselves, more sensitivity. And I read one more thing I'll say. I read a beautiful post on Facebook this morning by a Christopher somebody who was just saying, when we are willing to wear a mask out in public, it's both protecting others from, you know, our anything that would come out of our mouth, and they're protecting us. So when everybody's more caring about each other, like we are really one family, we do exist in a unity called this whole universe. We are so connected. We're connected by our breath. So it's so unusual that this coronavirus has made us more aware that we are breathing together. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you very much. All right. One of our guests has been coming for a few weeks now, and a longtime friend of mine, Maya. I'm putting the spotlight on you, Maya, and I need you to unmute yourself. So still can't hear you.
Now, can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay, thanks. Scott and I have known each other for years, like 30 years, actually, Scott. But I wanted to stay on the subject of the pandemic. When it first came out, which was 3 months ago, I was really scared because my life is already pretty isolated. I live alone. I work from my home. But what scared me was that my yoga classes were all closing down, and my church was closing down. I felt like, oh my God, now I've got more isolation, and I just felt very, very sad about it. But I'm proud of myself because I developed a relationship that I never thought was possible, Scott. You might get this, but it's with my cat. I have two cats, but one of them, I especially, his name is BP, I especially relate to him. And so at night, instead of feeling lonely, I connect with him. I pick him up, I kiss him, I scratch him. We do things together, and it just feels just so complete and so fulfilling. I never thought that would be possible. And there's other things going on, but I want to keep my comments to a minute. And if anybody has any comments on what I said, I'd love to hear them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very, very much, Maya. Thank you. Thank you. I'd love to hear from maybe one or two other people, and then we're going to go into, I'm going to go over the tips, and we're going to breakout rooms. Who else would like to share how you're experiencing the pandemic? What's coming up for you? Shawnee? Okay.
Hi. So yeah, I just wanted to share my experience a little bit with the pandemic. I'm actually a letter carrier, and I have a walking route. And so when the pandemic hit and everything shut down around here, day after day, I was just observing, the residential areas of my route. And it was a very humbling experience. Perspective is an important thing. Suddenly seeing everybody become teachers to their kids, being stuck at home. I was mostly, I feel so much for the children who are really experiencing lack of outlets with sports. And, through all the things I observed, what came out of it was I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful to have resources in my life. And we do need to be kind to one another. That's the most important thing, can make the difference for everybody, just a hi.
And they gave the masks.
Oh, and I was blessed. I mean, I'd get up to a mailbox every day and there would be masks, hand sanitizer. I'm blown away by humanity in my job. And I deliver mail in a very poor area. So these are people who do not have anything to give. And yet here they are, making sure that I'm safe to keep them safe. It's really just a beautiful thing.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Wow. All right. I'm going to go into the 5 tips. 2 of them we've already mentioned, and then I'm going to do the other 3, and then we're going to go into our breakout rooms. Tip number 1, reminder, don't get lost in conspiracy theories, belief systems, hours on the internet, reading all sorts of stuff, dialoguing back and forth. Don't get lost there. The people I know that are doing that are not happy. They are not enjoying the pandemic. Tip number 2, be kind to yourself and to everyone. I love what Shawnee just shared about, here she is, a postal person, and everybody, or so many people being kind to her. How good it feels to be kind. Be kind to everyone. And then tips 3, 4, and 5 are all about using this time to cultivate our most important relationships. First relationship, to self. Really learning to love yourself. Whether you're alone like Maya, or whether you're in a sacred partnership like Candace and Shawnee, where that person's reflecting back all the wonderful stuff and all the hard stuff, and you're doing that, right? But ultimately, it's our relationship to self. Learning to love ourselves is the meaning of life. We're here to learn to love, starting with ourselves. So really, where are the areas that I've been judging myself all my life? Where are the places I've been shaming myself? And really committing to not doing that anymore. Instead of running a shame thought, changing it to a positive affirmation. Instead of I am not enough, I'm perfect exactly as I am. Really embracing that. It's a beautiful affirmation. I am perfect exactly as I am. Because we all are. We're perfectly human. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. We really all are perfect. That's a big part of Love Coach Academy. Because nobody is broken. Nobody is damaged. We all have wounds. We all have history. We all have experiences that impact us. But we're all beautiful, divine human beings having this amazing experience, this journey of life. Tip number 4, cultivating your relationship to that which has an infinite number of names. Call it God, Source, Higher Self, Higher Power, whatever you believe that which is creating all of this is, cultivating that relationship to that. And there's many ways we can do it. We can do it through martial arts, through yoga, through playing a musical instrument, through a religious practice, through meditation. There's many, many ways. And Love Coach Academy doesn't promote any specific faith or religion, but we absolutely encourage everyone to cultivate various forms of spiritual practice to help us to feel more connected. And then the 5th tip, of course, is cultivating your relationship to the most important beings in your life. And if it's a cat, great. If it's a dog, great. And certainly the important people in your life, including maybe people in your life that are important that maybe you're estranged from or disconnected from. And it's awkward, and it's just easier to avoid connection. And the next thing you know, it's been 5 years and you haven't talked to your sister in 5 years. But what if you knew the world was going to end in a few weeks? Who would you want to talk to? Who would you want to clear with? Who would you want to say those things that you want to say? It's always a good practice in a time out like this to think, okay, if my life were to end, what do I want to clear? What relationships do I want to resolve? And you know what? Don't wait. Now is the time. Now is the time. So those are the 5 tips. And I'd like to open it up maybe to some of the love coaches we haven't heard from. And honestly, if you could share a little bit your ruminations, maybe Adrian, Timothy, Anaprabha, Jay, because I need to make the breakout rooms. So who'd like to share kind of on the tips? Timothy, thank you.
Oh, I was unmuted. You could have, people were probably hearing my rooster in the background, or my multiple roosters. Sorry about that. I've been a practitioner of meditation for quite a few years now, and it is a daily practice. So I think pandemic has been a blessing at reminding me to take deep dives every day inward into what I would call spaciousness or nothingness or relaxation. And it's a great remedy to stress and anxiety, which the pandemic seems to be creating for myself and many others. Worry, concern, the active mind, predicting bad outcomes for the future. It's the end of the world, blah, 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 all kinds of things. And by meditating, it brings me back into the moment, back into my body, back into a parasympathetic state, a relaxed state where my frontal lobes re-engage and I can think creatively. And I love the 4th tip that Scott gave us today, which is if death were sitting on your shoulder and you knew you had only, or maybe, yeah, the 4th tip, you only had a little bit of time left, what would you want to say or what would you want to do with your remaining time? And not because we're actually going to pass, but because that's a great way to live our lives. So those are some of my thoughts. Can I pass it on to Adrian?
Yeah, you know what? I'll come back. I'm working on setting up the breakout rooms. Let's all twinkle. And thank you so much for that. Adrian, put the spotlight on your partner.
You know, one thing that this pandemic, hi everybody, has
Good boy.
made clear to me. I think someone's unmuted.
Yeah, you know, we need to mute. Somebody's really loud.
Simply want to click on the link.
I am.
I think it's maybe Maya. Or,
It's just everybody try and keep yourselves muted if at all possible.
oh, Edith.
Yeah, Adit and Maya are
Yep.
unmuted.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm able to mute Maya, but I can't mute Adit. All
That
right,
was it.
take it. Okay, go ahead, Adrian. Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
one thing the spotlight has done is shown a brighter spotlight on how privileged I am, and encouraged me to ask the question, what is it that I want to do? You know, what is it that I want to do to help create equality, help create balance, and in the various ways that there aren't. You know, I mean, there's what's happening on the planet in terms of climate change. And there's what's happening on the world in terms of the inequality and injustice around race and racism. It's shone a brighter light on my kind of complacency and I want to say maybe laziness, you know, like the pandemic has been really helpful for me. I was coming out of a year of revisiting some really dark shadow, looking at, not looking at it, participating in some of my addictive tendencies. And so right before the pandemic hit, I was really coming into resolution with some of that, and having this time has been helpful for me. It's been helpful for my relationship. It's been really inspiring, like Timothy, to reinvigorate my meditation practice, to do tons of self-care, exercise, eating well, and all of that's been possible in large part because I am privileged. I have been able to pay my rent. I have been able to eat, and yeah. And I'm, you know, not the 1%, but I'm still able to do those things. So within that, what do I do? What do I do to help with anti-racism? What do I do to do my part with climate change? And I don't have all the answers, but it's shone a clear light into my privilege. Yeah, and I could go on. It's interesting. It's painful on some level. Yeah. So those are some words for you, Scott.
Thank you. Let's all twinkle Adrian. Thank you very much. All right. Well, thank you, Adrian and Timothy. I've created breakout rooms. There will be 4 or 5 people in each breakout room, and you're going to have an hour. We're going to go till 11:45 California time to really go deep. And we've got wonderful pod leaders, and pod leaders just really try and keep track of the time so that every person gets an opportunity to share. I recognize that I put approximately 1 new person into each breakout room. And I recognize that sometimes new people just want to watch or observe, and that's okay. A reminder that in the breakout rooms, it's not recorded, it's not on Facebook. For those of you watching on Facebook, I'm going to stick around and talk with you for a little bit. So once I click join breakout rooms, or I'm going to do a thing, and you're all going to get a little prompt to join your breakout rooms. You got to do that. And this is a chance for you to really go deep into this conversation and to get some empathy and some understanding and some dialogue with 3 or 4 other beautiful people. So with that, I am opening the breakout rooms, and please, everybody click join. Everybody click join. And again, a reminder to some of you, Mariko, you need to click join. Trish, I'll stay and talk to you for a moment. JP, if at all possible, if you can click join. You got it, great. Lorna, looks like you've walked away. Looks like Adit has walked away. Okay, so I've got a few people that haven't clicked join, but I'll stay here. I'm gonna pause. Welcome back, everybody. So a reminder to mute yourselves if possible. I'm going to do a little muting.
I'm just going to say to Diane quick. So there's the spelling of my name at Gmail. If you want to be in touch.
All right, welcome back, everyone. So what we always do is we ask our pod leaders to share kind of highlights. Certainly not anything personal. That was kept confidential, but just kind of often there's a theme that emerges or particular highlights or ahas. So we're going to start with Radiance this time. Radiance, hey.
Hi, Denise. We spoke into light touch and how to help transform whatever is going on internally into this place of deep gratitude. So Jay kind of helped to lead the group for health around healing, health around deep listening skills, and just practicing all of the light touch techniques. We had a great time. But I can only speak for me. I had a great time, but I think that the crew were really, it was energizing. Thank you.
Right, I'm putting the spotlight on Shani and Candace that were in that group too. So yeah.
We had a great party celebrating blessings and miracles.
All right, that was the fun group. That was the fun group. That's all. Twinkle them. All right, how about let's hear from Anaprabha. How did things go in your group?
Yeah. Hey everyone. Yes, we also had a fun group. However, we had fun in the way of old people have fun. Is older people. It's like a big theme was how can we be of service, right? And that was a huge theme for all of us. You know, it's really like really turning our lives over to service. And Seth reminded from a quote: "The best way to lose yourself is of service for others." Or I would even say the best way to find yourself is in service of others. Mahatma Gandhi was his quote. Because, you know, I mean, I remember just for me coming out with this pandemic hit, and Scott says, okay, we're on. We're gonna, you know, and it was a big shock, right? And it's like, all of a sudden we're on and we're gonna be of service, 9 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock at night, PST. And that was just got you right into how can we, and just forget about what's going on, but you're just being of service and you get into a flow and an energy flow. And we also spoke about that, like just being in this flow, and you get that flow going. And then everything else, you're opening up to flow. You're opening up to what else is going to flow through you and create through you. So we all sort of felt this really divine flow and felt this really need to be of service and how we can be of service. And just really a lot of humbleness and a lot of also this aspect of really telling each other and our most beloved, and just in general, I appreciate you. Even over I love you, I appreciate you. I appreciate your presence in my life. I appreciate you being here with me. Appreciate you going through this with me, and or just friends that we, elders that we haven't spoke to in a long time. Like just going to who we would love to talk to, who we love to speak to if we just had a week left, right? And calling up the elders and saying, I appreciate so much your care for me. And then also we talked about compassionate boundaries. And sometimes where there's people in our lives that we love them, they were deep, deep, deep friends in our lives, but for whatever reason, we need to really have a boundary with them. It doesn't work. Our energies don't work. It's not really not nurturing. It's not expanding us. And in a compassionate way to have boundaries. And we discussed also the yellow light and red light. You know? Yes. And what that's about, the yellow light and red light. So taking, timeouts. There we go. Thank you, Timothy. And so that's, and basically just the deep ability and the willingness to be of service is what came through for my group.
Wow. That was a lot. That's amazing.
And thank you for all the time, Scott, because it was so beautiful to have all that time to share deeply and to be relaxed, to kind of be able to, I'm going a little fast now because I feel I want to get through, but just everyone could slow down, tune in. Oh, let me say one more thing that was a beautiful share was as a male, just this connection around connecting with the core, deeply connecting, and how important that is for the male to feel safe, to be able to connect in a core way. And that was actually around connecting with you, Scott, how important that was, that the core can calm down, the core can receive, and the whole competitiveness can drop, and just the healing can come to that. So
thank you, Anupama. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. All right, let's go to Hawaii and hear from Daniel.
Yeah, hi everybody. Yeah, our group, the discussion really centered around, limitations in general, and it was inspired by some new physical limitations that one of our group members have been experiencing for the last 6 or 7 months, and how that relates to the collective limitations that are sort of inhibiting our choices and our abilities to do what we used to do, and how more and more it's like it's an opportunity to go inward and to do the inner work. It's almost like there's no other choice, and it's becoming more and more obvious that there's no other choice. And also how this empathy that we've been exploring together as a community, and how empathy can also have that similar flavor as self-connection, as the inner work, as we connect authentically with people outside, with others, and in a safe place where we're authentically connecting. It can have it's a very similar experience to when we're doing our meditation, and those are two of the gifts that we are recognizing that we're receiving from these experiences of the limitations of today. So yeah, that's kind of the theme that we touched on. I hope I got everything.
Yeah, beautiful. Twinkling to Daniel and his group. And we'll head from the big island over to the island of Maui and hear from Timothy.
So I got a special treat. I got to be with just one person. The rest of the people did not come into the group. And
I think it was your rooster jokes must have scared them away.
Yeah, scared them away. Kill Joe. If all of my roosters migrated to the Big Island to be near Daniel's house, I'd be so happy. In any case, it was really lovely to be able to drop in so deeply with somebody that I really care about, that's part of Love Coach Academy, and to support them with what's going on in them and in their situation. And I think there's a lot of parallels, but one big one that came up that's true for me as well is, if your primary love language is touch, it's even more difficult than for your average human who needs touch, because we are primates, so we're not designed to live alone. We're designed to live in community. But if your primary love language is touch, this is a really difficult time to isolate oneself. And so you know, the need to be active, to get out, to be in nature, to connect with other forms of life, so important. And yeah, it was pretty simple. I don't want to get into all the other stuff because it was very personal, but it was just so lovely to be able to support someone who I respect and care about so deeply.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. Thank you, Timothy. And finally, we will go to Adrian.
Yeah, I resonate with what Anna Prabha said. It was nice to have the time, more time than we typically do, to drop into conversation, and it was a really sweet conversation. And we touched on a lot, from the challenge of the isolation, like a few of you guys have spoken about, not being able to have the contact and the agitation that can come from that. And the spillover onto the relationships that we do have because of that agitation. To it not being, actually interrupting much, and then the comfort in the isolation, and the tendency of some of us to kind of be introverts and be comfortable in this environment, more comfortable of being insular and isolated, to the incredible benefits that this has provided, some unknown, unexpected, just incredible good fortune of being forced to do the things that the pandemic has forced us to do. In particular, one of our people, it's been just a blessing, an absolute blessing, and had a tremendous impact on them and people in their lives. So we touched on a lot of different things, and I'm really, really grateful to have been in conversation with my new friends, and continuously grateful for this work.
Great. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you. Yeah, I think you had quite a few new people. So a couple of closing things. I'm going to turn it over to Jay Mayer for a moment to talk a little bit about Light Touch. And we'll end the official part of this class. But if people want to stay and continue to converse, I'm going to stop recording. In fact, I'll stop recording right now. Just a reminder that